The Bill Jackson Documents Investigation, Part 1 by Charlotte Wheatley and Daniel Spino. In this new series, Compendium Investigations will be looking closely at various documents which have been associated with Oak Island, whether directly or indirectly. Allegedly, these all belonged at some time to Dr. William Bill Jackson. This vast collection of documents included the Jackson Oak Island map and the La Formule and Cremona documents, all of which have been mentioned on the Curse of Oak Island TV show. We mostly learn about Bill Jackson and his documents in two books, The Templar Mission by Zena Halpern and The Scrolls of Onteora by Don Rue. The Cremona document. The composition of the Cremona document is confusing to understand. It has been given different names, Benvenuto document, the Onteora document, and seems to contain various manuscripts with texts and maps. It was supposedly written by different authors and their different parts, including a journal written by a certain Ralph de Sudley in the 12th century. There are various subjects in the document, but the most extraordinary involves a transatlantic trip undertaken by a group of Knights of the Order of the Temple. It has been suggested that the document is a copy of the original, which explains part of the more modern-looking handwriting. It was partly written in the Theban alphabet and uses various languages including English, Italian and French. The Cremona has never been published in its entirety. We have only seen extracts from the internet and in Zena Halpern's and Don Rue's books, so unfortunately we can't analyze the full document properly. In part 1 of this investigation, we will examine the Nova Scotia map and a page that Don Rue calls the Ark page. The so-called Nova Scotia map was shown on the Curse of Oak Island TV show and featured in both Zena Halpern's and Don Rue's books. It is suggested that this document dates from the 12th century. Though the map is not to scale, we can easily identify different parts of Canada, including Nova Scotia. The annotations on the map are in French, and there are numbers written in Roman numerals and in text form. There are certain words, sentences that seemed slightly peculiar to us, but two annotations in particular caught our attention. The sentence, La courant de monstre. The monster current is badly written, and should have the masculine article li, as current is a masculine noun. We know from various sources that parts of the Cremona could have been written by an English speaker, but masculine-feminine is a common mistake throughout the Bill Jackson documents, some of which were supposedly written by a French speaker. We think the word Inuit has an error and should be written Inuit like in English. There are no other similar words it could represent. Inuit is a very modern word. It is attested as being introduced to the French language in the 20th century. In the huge database of archives on the BNF website, French National Library, the first publication we've found with the word Inuit was published in 1963. It could have been used earlier, but not in the 12th century. Its first known use in the English language was about 1745. The Ark document. In Don Rue's book, there is a photo of a page from Bill Jackson's collection that has the drawing of a chest on it. This is supposedly a representation of the Ark of the Covenant. The rest of the document appears to be a sort of map. There are also lines which look like the shape of a river, and various annotations in the Theban alphabet. The Theban alphabet, also known as the Witches' alphabet and the runes of Honorius, was supposedly created by Honorius of Thebes in the Middle Ages. This is first claimed in Polygraphia by Johannes Trithemius, polygraph, abbot and cryptographer, in 1518. But earlier writings in Theban have yet to be found and authenticated. It is used as a replacement cipher for concealing secret messages, spells and knowledge. It is often associated with witchcraft and the Wiccan and pagan movements. It was used to write rituals and magic. In the Ark document, Theban was used to replace French words. It has been suggested that the Order of the Temple used Theban symbols as a substitution alphabet, but after extensive research we have found nothing to conclude this is the case. At the time of the Templars, substitution alphabets were indeed used. There are a few known examples of the Cistercian numerals, which the religious group created as an alternative to Arabic numerals. The Cistercians were closely affiliated to the Temple Order, and it would not be surprising if the Templars used a similar system, but there is no actual evidence to support that the Knights Templar used such a cipher. Some researchers have suggested that the Cremona is a medieval document, even possibly a Templar document, which was partly recopied much later. This is purportedly the case with the Ark document. To comprehend more about this document, its writer, and its possible age, we have examined it in detail. In Donrou's book, the words have already been transcribed into French and then translated into English. We have rechecked the Theban transcription that was done at the time and have looked at the sentences and words. The letters in plain alphabet, ABC, were added as an index for the annotations by researchers in the 1970s. We have put the annotations that we find the most revealing with their corresponding letters below. A. Karnak, the temple complex in Egypt. The earliest entry that we find of this name being used in French is in a 1786 book. There is an earlier usage in 1668, but this is spelt Karnak, like the megalithic monument in France, 3 and 4. B. Le Souterrain, which had been translated here as tunnel, actually means underground. Composed of the words sous and terrain, in early French it is written with S or Z in front of the T. It appears without the middle S in the third edition of the French Academy Dictionary in 1745, though we have seen some earlier uses in publications from the 1560s. 6. C. Luxor =. Luxor in Egypt was indeed sometimes written that way in the 19th century. D. Le corridor de l'eau, translated here as the water pipe, it actually means the corridor of water. We find corridor first attested in use in the 17th century, 7, and, though it might have been used earlier, it is doubtful to have been used before the 16th century. E. Le compartments, meaning the compartments. The grammar is incorrect. It has a singular article for a plural noun. It should also be spelt compartiments. H. La baguette de zinc, supposedly meaning the zinc rod. It should be spelt baguette. More interestingly, the word zinc was attested as being written zane until the mid-17th century, when it first appears in various publications. 9. It is not until the 4th edition of the Academy Dictionary in 1762 that it is officially spelt zinc. 10. A. Le cuivre baguette, translating as the copper rod. This is not correct and should be written la baguette de cuivre. Both the spelling and sentence construction are wrong. J. La vitrine d'or, which is translated in the book as cabinet or chest of gold, is certainly more a cabinet than a chest. The word is attested in use in the early 19th century, but only first appears in the French Academy Dictionary in its 7th edition in 1878. 11. L. Les ailes des aigles, meaning the wings of the eagles. The article la should be li, as the following word starts with a vowel. This is a common mistake on many Bill Jackson documents. The French, which was encrypted into Theban at some point, has many spelling mistakes and grammar problems. It's highly unlikely that the writer was a native speaker. We understand from the researchers who have studied these documents that they are likely to be copies and that the original writers might not have been French. We take their arguments into account, but these mistakes remind us of the other Bill Jackson documents supposedly produced by other writers on other dates, where there are many similar issues: plurals, articles, masculine, feminine. This document has many common points with the Oak Island map and with the Abraham letter, which were both supposedly produced at different times and by different people. This would indicate the likelihood that the documents had the same author or authors. Conclusion. Concerning the date of the French words, in both the Nova Scotia map and the Ark page, it is possible that some were used before they were officially recorded. This could imply they were used a few decades before they were attested, but not centuries. In both documents there are many words which only appear in the 17th century. Vitrine is first recorded in 1878, and Inuit only first appeared in the 9th edition of the French Academy Dictionary, which is actually the current version. It's hard to understand when this document was written and by whom. If it is genuine, how many times has it been copied? And why hasn't it been copied in its original form? Clearly, the French language and the style used is not medieval. Due to all the irregularities of these two documents, it is the compendium's opinion that they were both made in the 20th century and were not written by a native French speaker. In the next part of this investigation, we will examine other documents connected to the Cremona document, and very importantly, we will examine how Bill Jackson allegedly sourced this document. Please visit www.theokislandcompendium.com to access the entire article and analysis. This is only a portion of Part 1. Join us next Tuesday for Part 2. Bonne journée du compendium. Good day from the compendium. Charlotte and Daniel,